panel already stained. It's drying. This rough cut of outdoor siding really did soak up the stain. It took almost a quart for a 4x8 sheet. Okay, so now we're going to work on the frame of the doghouse. This will be the nailer for the paneling that will go on later, but we're going to frame it out. The dimensions of this particular doghouse is going to be 44 by 22. Okay, so we got our frame built. Now we're going to piece this together. I'm using a 2.5 inch screw. This will allow it to go through the first piece and catch the other one also. I am going to pre-drill this, so that's what we're going to do now. And the reason I chose to pre-drill it is just so it wouldn't split. So now I'm going to line up all my pieces. I'm going to go ahead and start the and then I'll turn it and put it into place. Okay, so now I've got the top and the bottom frames built. And so now we're going to start on the vertical pieces for the corners. Okay, so now we got to do these vertical pieces that hold the top and the bottom frame. And at the top of the frame, there's going to be a little bit of an angle to it because I want a little slant on the roof. So I'm going to show you how we're going to figure out what the angle is going to be. This is just a guide on how I can figure out what my angle is going to be so I can cut my strips off at the correct angle. So we know that 22 inches and 24 inches, that's a 2-inch fall. So we're going to take our speed square and mark 2 inches. That's a really bad mark. So we're going to make that 2 inches. And we're going to position just a straight edge at the top corner. That'll be our 0, top corner. And then we're going to place this at 2 inches. And that's going to give us our slant. And that's the slant that I want on the top of the roof of the doghouse. So once I get that in position, I'm going to draw a little line. This is not much of an angle, but I do want a little bit of an angle on the tops of my vertical pieces when I cut them on the miter saw. So you're going to put the top of your speed square at the top part of the line, and then you're going to rotate. You're going to pivot it until that line is visible and you're lined up perfectly perpendicular with that line. Once you have that established, you're going to go down and look at your degrees and figure out that it's not 10 degrees, but it's about 7 or 8 degrees. Okay, so now we've determined that we want an 8-degree angle cut on the end of our vertical stick at the front edge of our frame. So we want the front edge of our frame, the back edge was going to be 22. We want the front edge to be 24. But we've also determined that these 2x2s are actually about 1.5 inches, so we're going to subtract 1.5 inches plus 1.5 inches, which is 3, from the 24. So that takes us to 21. So 21 inches is going to be our top edge. So now, if you've got a miter saw, you can adjust the angle. Okay, got this in place. Blade is touching one side of the line. So we've got this cut at an 8-degree angle. Now if you've got this side cut at an 8-degree angle, then this side's going to be at an 8-degree angle. So you can take these two and measure from this one right here and cut your second stick the same length. Okay, so I got both my sticks, both my angles line up. And come back to the end, and I'm simply just going to mark it. Okay, now we've got all these pre-drilled. We went ahead and put our screws in to just make it a little bit faster and easier to put this together. You can manipulate these vertical pieces to line up as you screw them in. So I'm going to go ahead and get that in position. Okay, as you can see, this is starting to look like the frame of a doghouse. So it does like paneling, it does like the door. One other thing I'm going to do, and I'll go ahead and show you that now. At times we go to the hardware store, or if we have any work done around the house, I try to always pick up a few like scrap pieces and keep those just for times like this. These pieces right here are usually when you see like plywood bundled or lumber bundled. You can pick these up usually for free at Lowe's. If you just ask, they'll usually just give them to you. So we're going to use these to do something on the doghouse to give it a little bit more support. Okay, since I already knew that the shorter pieces on the bottom was 19 inches, I went ahead and cut these at 19 inches. I only had to use one of them, so I can use the other one for other projects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these down here as support for the floor that I put in later. Okay, so we're looking pretty good. We got the frame all put together. This is actually going to be, turn it around. This will actually be the front when you look at the side, it's going to have a little bit of slant for the roof. We got our support pieces in the bottom. That'll be for the floor. And now we're going to start measuring for paneling. Okay, we got our plywood. We went ahead and turned it on the back side because when you do your cut, the more splintery edge is going to be toward the top and you're going to have a smoother edge at the bottom. So we're going to work for the front side first. So we're going to measure that at 24. We'll do that down here. This is something my husband picked up not too long ago. We were cutting some plywood for something else, for some shelving. It worked out wonderfully for when you need to make these really long cuts. So let's first mark our line. I'm going to use a jigsaw to cut this because my skill saw is out of commission. So I need a clearance of 1.5 inches to allow for the plate on the jigsaw. So I'm going to measure 1.5 inches here. Inch and a half here. Okay, so I did a little test cut, and it is right. We needed about 1.5 inches for this plate to come over. It's going to push against this as we go down through there. That way we get a nice straight line. Now, as you're doing this with a jigsaw or a skill saw, you got to make sure your blade's got plenty of clearance down here if you're cutting down something down low. So here we go. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Definitely smoother on the front because we cut it on the back side. The back side is way more splintery. So we're going to do a little test fit to make sure this is correct. Okay. So, because this particular paneling, this is exterior paneling, I picked it up at Lowe's, it was like $23 a sheet, has like a shiplap edge. It's made to where you can slide the other piece in under it if you're doing this on a wall. Because it has that overhanging edge, I'm going to line up the bottom. That way, when I fit my board on the side, I can just butt it up right up against that and it'll have a nice edge to it. So we're going to line up that edge and screw it down. Not too bad. Certainly is easier to cut it with it on a sturdy frame. Okay, so it's the next day. It rained all day yesterday, so I didn't get to work out here. We got a piece of paneling that we're going to use for both sides. The sides should be about 22. And they are. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut the width, tack it up here, draw this angle mark, and then take it off and cut that mark, and then just reattach. We're going to try that. Okay, we're going to take the panel lined up here at the bottom. I just went ahead and set it flush to the bottom, and I'm not even going to have to tack it on. Just make sure it's in place. Take your pencil and mark that line. Alrighty, get this set in place and screwed on there. Alright. Okay, we're gonna hold this in place. Go behind here and mark. This is looking down in the doghouse, and I was trying to figure out the idea I had about a floor. I think what I'm going to do it in 3 pieces. I'm going to notch it out right here so it'll fit kind of snug around that corner, and have it run to about the center of this 2x, or it's about a 1.5 by, and then do from the center of this over to here, and then run it to the side and notch out those corners. So let's see if we can figure that out. I've laid the piece of paneling I have right here left over, and I've laid it here on top, and I'm going to go down here, and I can see where the little 2x2 where it comes to. So I'm just going to make me a mark, and then a mark going out like a 90-degree angle, and do the same thing on the other side. I'm going in about 1.5 inches. We're going to measure from the outside to the center, and it's about 1 foot. I'm going to leave a little slack on each end because I don't want this to fit real tight in the beginning. We'll tighten it up in the end. The roof is going to be a metal roof, so I've got this scrap piece of metal that I had over my shed. It's even got a little bit of dirt on top. That's okay. It's 8 feet long, and I might possibly one day make another doghouse, so I think I'm just going to cut it in half at the 4 foot mark. So I went ahead and made my mark, which you can barely see. And I got my skill saw. A trick I'd heard is if you turn your blade around backwards, you can cut the metal. I have not tried this, but we're going to try it today. Safety first. So that went way better than expected. I really did not think it was going to cut it, but I did turn my blade around backwards, and it cut it just pretty as you please. So now we're going to make a frame to put this roof on. Okay, so I made my frame. I put the support pieces. It fits over it nicely. I did turn the support pieces, the narrow piece up, so it would fit with a little bit of a lip on it. So when I put my tin on. So next, let's do the tin. We're gonna put it on this metal roof. Now it's really important that you get the right screw for this. You wanna have one that's got a little rubber washer on it that's actually made for roofing. I found a bag of these at the hardware store. They were like leftovers and they sell them by the pound, and it seems like they were like $3 a pound or something. So I got like twice as many of these for I think like $7, $8. So these are real handy to have. You can use them for more than just metal too. I've got an idea of where I want the door to go. So we're looking at the front. Okay, so I'm going to stay about 2 inches off the bottom of the floor because that's where my floor starts, and I decided to go up to 20 inches. And that'll give me about a 18-inch height. And I'm going to make it about 12 inches wide, which is right at those vertical lines. So I'm going to take a drill and drill some little pilot holes and see if I'm going to miss the floor. Okay, we got our hole sawed out for the doghouse. And now just to pretty it up a little bit, I'm going to take some trim I bought. Just to pretty it up a little bit. I bought some real thin trim that I'm going to go ahead and pre-cut. And then I'm going to stain it and attach it to the doghouse. It's going to attach. Is this going to look like this? Once I get it finished. And it'll just give it a little bit more clean look, a little bit more finished look. So that's what we're going to do. Let me get all these cut. Okay, now that I've got all my trim pieces made, I've labeled most of them. These that are all the same length I know went on the back. These are around my door. Alright, I'm going to kind of lay them out. And I'm putting a really dark stain to kind of contrast with the siding. This should go on pretty easy. brad nailer for this job. What we're gonna do, this one says front left side. So we're gonna attach this here, and then attach this one here on the front. Make sure they're lined up. Make sure they're lined up nice and straight. Tack it. Tack this side. And then tack it like in a zigzag pattern. There you go. If you don't have a brad nailer, you can use like little finish nails. Same thing. It's just that I had a brad nailer available, so that's what I used. The trim was all completed around the doghouse, around every corner, and around the facing of the entrance. I also put some risers at the bottom of the doghouse to lift it up off the floor. And as you can see, the roof will come off the doghouse to where you can clean it out if need be. Thank you for watching.